What's up, everybody? It's your boy Aaron, and I'm here as promised to answer your Instagram questions once and again because you guys gave me such a positive response from my first video, even though I rambled on for a whole hour. So, we're going to do this again. Um, I haven't really looked at these questions yet, so I'll be reading them first time live here for you. So, I got them right here, so let's get rolling. Starting off, we have, what is your opinion on carb depletion to carb loading into a show? And same for loading to depleting water and sodium. I think that this is kind of a complicated question in terms of this is something that's going to vary per individual. Um, if I were to work with somebody from the beginning to the end of their prep in terms of when they're loading for a show, I would do a couple trial carb loads and sodium loads because everyone is going to kind of respond to that a little bit differently. Some people are carb sensitive. For me personally, I can eat some really salty food and I don't really blow it up. My blood pressure doesn't go up. I know some friends that'll go out there and they'll eat some real salty food and it's like they'll have a nosebleed from blood pressure. So, I mean, we all respond to this stuff differently. So, if I were to really just answer that question, I would say through a 12 to 16 week prep, set yourself up to kind of do a little miniature carb load or a miniature, water and sodium depletion and loading to see how your body responds. And that way, when you get to the end, you'll kind of you'll have a better basis of how to really handle that. What are your favorite carb sources to carb up on before a show? How many times do you try to eat before you step on stage for prejudging? Personally, I can say that most of my career, I think it's mental, but I usually end up showing up the prejudging a little bit flat. So I would say that eat as much as you can. For me, I probably should eat more. When I was working with Fakri Mubarak, normally he would knock on my door at 5 a.m. and he would look at me, we would pose, and then we would plan out the day, and we would plan out, okay, you're going to eat this with this much water, and just go from there. So I think this is also, a lot of these questions I don't have a real concrete answer because they changed a little bit. That's why Fakri wouldn't just print out a plan and hand it to me. He came and he knocked on my door at 5 a.m. and looked at how I looked because the body's changing. So adapt and survive. My favorite carb source is something that's light, something that doesn't really bloat you. Again, that's going to be a little bit subjective. I think initially white rice, white potato is good. But I do end up eating. When I've looked really good, I've just said fuck it and eaten a lot of Pop-Tarts and muffins, of course. But muffins are really popular right now, anyways, right? What does your current off-season diet look like? Measure macro counts. Whichever you go by, and what is your preferred pre-workout meal, and why? Current off-season diet is not really terribly structured. I'm about to kind of structure it more because I'm really making a conscious effort to gain 10 to 15 pounds. So I'm really going to be making sure I'm eating in my surplus. I also linked up with meal dealers. He's a friend of mine. He has a meal prep business, so that makes it easy. But it also makes it so I'm eating a little bit cleaner. Because if I'm busy and stuff, I end up eating out a lot, especially in the off season. If it's just me, I don't really cook for just me a lot. So, yeah. I still eat sushi. Oh man, 5 times a week minimum, probably, and probably about 5 solid meals a day. Each meal has about 8 to 10 ounces protein and about a cup and a half of rice. Brown rice right now was this week. Pre-workout meal, I do like, I remember in one of my videos I made those protein waffles. Sometimes I'll eat one of those. They're kind of light. Um, Something that's not really going to bother me too much. How did you build your glutes? I wouldn't say I really trained my glutes, like glute exercises. I do a lot of squats and glute hand raises. I do a lot of lunges, but just in terms of glute training, like kickbacks and all that stuff, I've never really done glute training. Maybe it's just my posture. I'm not sure, but I've always squatted heavy. I've always squatted deep. I think that your glute development may also have to do with your hip mobility. How deep you squat and how you're squatting. These are all things to take into consideration. I think walking lunges, where you're pulling your body forward and squeezing, contracting the glute, is there's not really much better than that. I'm 17 years old. As a person who looks up to Cody Montgomery, who was a beast through all his teen years, what supplements should I keep as a staple for myself use, keeping in mind I'm still a teen? Well, as a teen, I'll be honest with you, supplements are supplements. Now, I do represent Blackstone Labs, and Blackstone Labs has, in my opinion, these are the best supplements that I've ever used. They're real, they work. I've been around the track multiple times at this point. But if you're 17, if you're in your teens, your nutrition needs to be primary. I wouldn't really even bother walking into like a GNC or, if I was 17, if a 17-year-old came up to me and said, hey, I've got $100, what should I go into, the supplement store and buy? I would say go to the grocery store. And that's just honest because that's what muscle's made out of. Now, if you want to take a supplement, I would say that, a post-workout product is always safe, like a Formula 19 type of product from Blackstone. That's an easy staple. It's nutrition. It's all about nutrition at that stage. So anything that's going to help you like that. When I was in high school, I thought creatine was a big deal. I'm tell you, like, don't worry about it. So like Formula 19, if you want a little bit of pre-workout to give you a little kick, vasodilator. These are all if you have expendable income, but make sure you're eating. That's what's going to make you build muscle. Hip adductors and abductors, are they essential to building strong glutes? I'll say that yes, because if they are tight and they're all jacked up, you won't really be able to train your legs. I think that if your abductors and adductors are messed up, you really won't be able to squat well. You're not going to have good hip mobility. And if you don't have good hip mobility, how are you really going to stretch and contract your glutes? You won't. I know that for me, I struggled with sciatica in the past. And just from doing more, let's say, abductor, like I start my leg workouts with the abduction machine, just to really squeeze my glutes and put blood in my hip area. I think it's really important. In terms of adduction, I don't really use the machine much for it, but I think that walking lunges really train that area a lot. If you squat heavy, it trains a lot. You squat deep. All right. When will it be your turn to win the 212 Olympia? Well, I'm not doing 212 anymore, so I've said this a bunch of times, but I'm honored that you have me in the running. But yeah, I'm not I'm not running after that one anymore. What type of foods do you eat during prep? Do you stick to the basics like chicken, fish, and eggs, or do you use a flexible dieting approach? I also do believe that one is more effective than the other. Um, I 100% believe that you are what you eat, and I don't think that anybody can really validly argue against that, because what are the cells in your body made up of other than what you're putting into your body? So, yeah, I do believe that the quality of your physique, obviously, you can have freak genetics, you can take drugs, you can do X, Y, Z, but bottom line, it needs to be fed. These cells in your body, your muscles are made up of what you're putting in. So, I do believe in sticking to the basics. Now, there's been times where desperate times call for desperate measures. You know, I've had some stomach issues in the past, and there's been times where I've had to kind of work around my body. You know, I know I've said it before that you know, I used to drink a lot of egg whites. That used to be a big staple for me. I know I'm not the only one who does that. You said eggs, so I've never really been a big whey protein person. Um, in terms of flexible dieting, you know, it depends on what you mean by flexible. I really think that if you can stick to the basics, stick to the basics. Don't try to overthink it. Just eat real food, and if it doesn't seem to be enough, you know, like you. Here's how I would structure a diet: basic foods, rice, chicken, you know, and a vegetable, or you know, that's a crude example. Let's say it's not enough. You could add a little dirty stuff here and there to kind of fill in the gaps, but everything should have a basic skeleton of clean, basic foods. That's just my opinion. Okay. I know you suffer from sciatica. What do you recommend on dealing with it while training? Um, I used to suffer from it more. I think this goes back to also the hip thing, and the adductor abductor. Your sciatica. I mean, also when I started getting massage work done and getting my hamstrings run down and loosened up, that made a huge difference. A lot of times the sciatica issue is, you know, if I watch people who have it, they have a really weak posterior chain and they're not really evenly kind of coming down or pushing from the middle of their torso when they're doing these leg movements or a deadlift. Um, so it's not an issue that is. I mean, it could go away, but it probably will not go away. But you can do therapy. You can stretch. You can, you know, your IT bands are going to have something to do with it. There's a lot of things that can really come into play and affect that area. So take care of your back. I have an inversion table. I go on that, push, get my hips to release, stretch, work on your mobility, and you know, always make sure that don't let your hamstrings get too tight, because for me, that makes it much worse. How often do you train each muscle group per week? What type of workouts would you recommend for mass gain? Um, how many times per week? Minimum of once. Um, Sometimes every 5 days or so. It all depends on what's going on in my life at the time. Um, but yeah, I think that's again trial and error. It all depends on how heavy you're training, you know, what you're taking, who you are. There's a lot of factors that are going to come into play. So experiment around with that one, figure out what works for you, and stick with it, and then switch it up every now and then. Um, what type of workouts? I like to do a little bit of everything. And in terms of what type of workouts do I recommend for mass gain, I recommend doing all different workouts, stimulating all the different muscle fibers, and then eating enough to gain mass. That's from a bodybuilding perspective. Who's your 212 rival? We already talked about 212. Who's my biggest motivational person? Who? That's a tough one. If I were to be completely honest, I think that for me, motivation is who do you want to be and who do you not want to be? And your actions are going to decide that. So I think that in a way I am my motivational person in terms of my fears and my desires. That might sound weird, but I try not to base what I do off of other people. Instead, I try to base it off of, just the type of person that I have one life to live. So I want to be the Aaron Clark that I want to be. And so that's what should motivate me to do what I do on a daily basis, not what someone else does that I think is cool and I wish I was them. That's how I see it. How do you get bigger calves and hamstrings? Calves, I train almost every workout. At the beginning of my session, I just go pound out a few sets, usually end with a drop set, and then I'll just start my workout. I think your calves can be trained a lot of times per week, and they don't really need a lot of recovery time. You don't need to train them really heavy, but you need to stretch the shit out of them and get a good contraction. So that's pretty simple. Hamstrings, I do one leg workout that's focused on quads and one that's focused on hamstrings, but they both, like quads, get some love on hamstring day. Hamstrings get some love on quad day, because I don't believe in training one without the other. How do you get bigger hamstrings? One of my favorite exercises. Glute ham raises are great. Lunges again. Lying leg curls. Lots of supersets. I like to do things like supersetting, doing the leg curls and then doing a walking lunge so that my hamstrings are really pumped, and then I'm doing a walking lunge, so I'm pulling myself forward with a pre-fatigued hamstring. I think that works good. Stuff like that. Trial and error, man. Mess around. See what's good. What is your favorite cardio exercise while preparing for a show? None of the ones in the gym, but man, if I had to pick one, I mean, I just walk on the treadmill. I kind of believe that the stairs will get you in shape, but if you're really banging your legs up like twice a week, that it takes away from the separation in your quads. I've seen it happen. I've had friends come to me like a week or two out, and they'll be like, "Man, I don't know what's happening. As my calories are dropping, my weight's dropping, and all of a sudden the separation of my legs is going away." And it's because they're not letting their legs fill back out after the training. So it's about, to me, that's cardio in terms of fat burning. It's just about your heart rate, getting into that target zone. Obviously, the stairs get you in good condition, but it's not really, I don't correlate that with being contest lean. That's a different thing. So for pre-contest, I would say just for the sake of your joints, I'll go with the treadmill. How about that? Or walking outside, riding a bike, rollerblading. Don't rollerblade. Why in pictures with the fans your face looks like your heart is in pain? Maybe they're squeezing my hand too hard, or maybe you're just kind of being an asshole. I don't know. One or the other. How do you train the lower part of your traps that go all the way down to the erectors. I would say that's about getting a contraction in the rhomboids. It's you need to learn to open your scapula up, so you can really contract that area. That's important to do if you want to have a good back development, and also if you want to be able to pose your back the right way on stage. What is the most important pre-workout nutrient when trying to put on mass? Example: carbs, protein, fats, or etc. I don't know what you mean by etc., but you kind of covered all the bases. I would say not fats. I would say carbs and protein. Um, I think that's a pretty. I mean, unless you're in the gym for hours and hours and hours, you're on a special ketogenic diet or something. But I don't think you are if you're trying to gain mass. Um, you want to fill the muscles with glycogen, and you want to have enough amino acids, flowing through that you're not putting yourself into a catabolic state while you're training. So carbs and protein. Um, if your workout's really long, then definitely add some fats. But you also don't want to be weighed down, so you're puking in the middle of the gym, because then you're back at square one. Uh, when you made the choice to bodybuild, did you initially think of the long-term effects of the sport? How did you move forward? I think the choice to bodybuild it wasn't like a one day, one moment that I was like, I'm going to be a bodybuilder. It was kind of started working out, had some people tell me, hey, you look good, man, you should try this. Me being like, nah, and then me being like, maybe, and then getting talked into doing it, and then before you know it, there you are on stage naked. It just happens. Um, but did I think of the long-term effects? Um, I think that I took a lot of risks, and I would admit that to anybody. And I would tell anybody who's a young and up-and-comer, don't put all your eggs in the basket of bodybuilding, because the probability that will come back and give back to you what you gave to it is slim pickings. Let me tell you. I've had to crawl through glass to get anything from bodybuilding. Um, and that's not to say that, I'm not blessed right now. Blacks and Labs treats me great, and I'm very happy. But starting out, I turned pro, and I didn't have a contract for over a year. I wasn't making any money from being a pro bodybuilder. So, in terms of what are these long-term effects, like, if you're getting into bodybuilding, it's not a wise decision. You got to have some motive. You got to have something crazy going on. Um, you know, I feel like what happened to me was I actually tried to get away from bodybuilding at one point, and it was like something in my head just it wouldn't shut up. It told me, like, you have unfinished business. And I think that sometimes in your life you're going to come across things that you're just going to realize deep down that you have to do this. And it might hurt you, it might be painful, it might have negative consequences in some way, shape, or form, but it may be what is in the cards for you. So I feel like bodybuilding for me was one of those things. And you got to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. What kind of person are you? And what kind of traits do you have that you can best utilize in this world? Do I ever get too obsessed with lifting weights that it started to affect my logical thought? I don't really know what you mean by that. But I guess you could say that a lot of bodybuilders, and I mean, sure, I'll lump myself into this category, will get obsessive about training, and it will make them prioritize their life illogically. Um, but that's all perspective, right? Um, in the end, you could look at the guy next to you and question the logic of his actions as well. So, excuse me. You know, we're all cut from a different cloth. Do I stretch after my workouts? Yes. That's the only time you should stretch really, um, like really stretch, is when that muscle is full of blood. Top 2 exercises for biceps and triceps. If these were the only exercises you would be allowed to do. Well, if anybody told me I wasn't allowed to do what I wanted for biceps and triceps, except for 2 exercises, um, rope. Well, I just post. There's going to be an arm workout video that will be up shortly, and you'll see I do a rope press down variation, standing dumbbell curls, overhead tricep extensions, and probably hammer curls. There you go. Honestly, you could do those exercises, and you'd probably have great looking arms. People overthink the hell out of their arm training. If you're training your back and your chest, your shoulders, all these other muscle groups, you're using your arms. So um, don't think too hard. Just have good form and learn how to really contract the muscle. What would be the underlying issue of not feeling a proper contraction, the pump, when training a certain muscle? Um, well, you could have just not really developed a connection with that muscle. It may just take more time. You may have difficulty, with blood flow to that area. You may need someone to work on that area. I've gone to a massage therapist before when I didn't have a lot of work done, and he said, "Show me your hands." And I showed him my hands, and he said, "Oh my God, your lymphatic system is clogged." And he dug out, and I was screaming in pain, all these areas, and it was interesting because the blood flow afterwards to certain areas was much better. Um, you'll have things build up in your body that will inhibit blood flow. Um, think of all the things that we ingest that are toxins and such. These all are going to affect that. So um, just keep that in mind. And if you have the fascia run on a muscle, the fascia could be holding a muscle too tightly. You never know. You can need to break it down. There's a lot of answers to that question. What is the best protein source for pre and post workout digestion efficiency? Fish, eggs, red meat. That's gonna really. I don't know if there's really a right or wrong answer. Post workout, I would choose a lean source naturally, because your insulin is at the highest. So I would choose probably like the egg whites of the fish. The red meat will be slower digesting. So let's say I was choosing from those 3 sources. I'd probably eat the red meat pre-workout because it's higher like creatine, ATP, and red meat. It might help you get a better pump, a little more endurance. It'll digest a little slower, and then post-workout, I would eat the egg whites of the fish. Do I ever look back to my Sakatumi thread from T Nation? Man, it's been a long time. But I do remember it. How do you compare your overall approach in bodybuilding now to when you turned pro, you feel you have learned a lot since then, and you feel you've learned certain things may not have been necessary to get where you are. Less is more idea, etc. I ask since this is probably the main thing I've learned in my own bodybuilding journey. Yeah, I mean, I have learned a lot. I think that I've learned that sometimes less is more in some areas, and sometimes more is more in other areas. Um, this is a very subjective question. I used to really overtrain, and I mean really, really overtrain. Um, so obviously that inhibited my muscle growth. I was a stubborn little mule, and I wouldn't listen to anybody. So I had to tear some muscles before it kind of got through my thick skull that I should probably follow science and follow a better training approach. That's probably why you see I'm so meticulous in my form now. Um, but in terms of like the less is more, I think you learn about the whole thing is just what bodybuilding is. When you're on the inside, you learn a lot, and um, you learn that some people take like that some amateurs or maybe you back in your early days took some things way too seriously that really didn't matter that much, and that maybe you should have really invested your energy instead of into A, you should have invested it into C or B. Um, so yes, I would say, obviously I've learned a lot, and I'm still learning. We all are. Um, you seem to be shaky, but still under control when you lift heavy. Why is this? Do you ever worry about hurting yourself? Well, I have hurt myself. When people ask me why I'm shaky, I would say this to them. I would say, I want you to go get a 20-pound dumbbell, and I want you to hold it out in front of you like this. Just as long as you can. Count to 2 minutes. And I guarantee that your arm is going to start shaking. You know why? Because you're trying so hard to control that weight, and it's really heavy to control like that. So when you see me shaking, it's because I'm holding my body in this position with a lot of weight. I think a lot of people are a lot more free moving when they're training. I really have a tension, and I'm really, really focusing on it. And I use weight that's challenging to me. I go over my training split with you. Do I feel that certain muscles should be trained more often or less often? That's going to be up to you. That's something. Everyone's body's different, and people's body parts are. Some people have freak body parts. You'll see some dude with huge delts, and you'll be like, "Damn, you must train your delts like 3 times a week." You'll be like, "I don't train my delts at all." You'd be like, "What?" So I can't really say this body part needs to be trained twice a week. Generally speaking, though, I think you should train your legs in a 7-day period. It should probably be hit twice. Because if you think about it, that's about half your body. So if you want to be in good shape, you should probably do that. Otherwise, I don't really have much to say. My training split is different every week. I do not follow a Monday is this day, Tuesday is this day, Wednesday is that day. It switches around. I use the rest days as I need them. So I guess if I had any input, just make sure you're not training any small muscle. Like don't do arms, don't do triceps before you do chest. The day before you do chest. Don't do biceps the day before you do back. Take make sure you leave a few days in between training muscles that are going to affect the large muscle groups. Maybe you don't do heavy squats the day after you train back, things like that. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. I'm 3.5 weeks out of my first show. Posing has been really hard for me to learn. What are some tips you would have for a beginner who's just learning his mandatory poses? And also some static posing. Um, a lot of this is just going to come down to straight practice. Just go lock yourself in the bathroom and just drill yourself in front of the mirror or film it. Because you can't really see all angles in the mirror. Film it, film it, film it. You can do this by yourself. Also, um, I had the privilege to work with Kenny Wallach um, down in Connecticut, um, and he was amazing. I have to say, he really gave me a lot of insight into my posing. The first person who taught me how to pose was Irvin Gelb. He was a photographer for Muscle Mag, and he brought me to the Arnold Classic in 2008 before I did Teenage Nationals, and I didn't know how to pose at all. And I remember he had this thing full of trunks from photo shoots, and he was like, "Here, get a pair, and we're gonna pose. You're gonna learn how to do this shit." And yeah, he just drilled me on it, and I did terrible. I was sweating and cramping, but you learn. Um, it's not gonna be easy. You're gonna even once you learn, these things are gonna develop over time. You're gonna have to play with it. The bigger you get, the better certain things will look. Um, Practice, practice, practice. To get big, you have to eat big. I get it, but I have really bad digestion problems. Do you know any way to get over this and still get calories in surplus? Well, the way to get over this would be to narrow down what your digestive problem is so that you can properly care for it. Digestive problems is very ambiguous. It could mean you have a food allergy. It could mean you need enzymes. It could mean that you have colitis. I mean, it could mean all kinds of things. So you need to figure out what that means. Anytime someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, this hurts. What do you think I should do?" I was like, "You should go to a doctor and find out why it hurts. Then you'll know how to fix it." You can never fix a problem until you know what it is. So diagnose a problem, and then you can use knowledge to fix it. That's really, I mean, I wish it was more simple than that, but that's really the only answer. Um, as an ectomorph, I should give up the dream. Not necessarily, but uh, keep your priorities straight. And let me tell you, man, there can be more to life. Um, if you're having digestive issues, I would get that taken care of because that can really, affect your health. So that would be your number one concern. Once you get that taken care of, get your weight up if you can, and see where it goes, man. But no pressure um, in terms of chasing the dream. Take care of yourself. How's your diet off season to put on size? Can you list your top three proteins, carbs, and fats? Uh, beef, fish, tilapia, and egg whites, carbs, white rice, brown rice, and oats. Yes. Fats. I'll use some nut butters. I think you guys think that some of these questions I feel like it's like more information than I know. Um, Wife Amber is a mother of two and competing in her second bikini competition in 10 days. Words of encouragement. Um, well, good luck, Amber, and congratulations on making it through your prep with 2 kids. That's not easy to do, I'm sure. And yeah, enjoy yourself, have fun, and do it for fun, do it for the love, and be appreciative of the support you have from your family, because that is something to cherish for sure. Um, do you feel better training in a t-shirt or a tank top? I like training in a t-shirt. I don't like training in a tank top. I like to be kind of covered up. I don't know. I just am not into, like, maybe if I'm training arms and my arms get really pumped, I'll like push my sleeves up or something. But I like, this is a double XL right here. If I were to say my preference, I'd probably rather go to the gym in a triple XL shirt. It's just me. Taking salt before within a workout? Yeah, you should eat salt before a workout, of course. Sodium is very important for training it for athletes. I think people underutilize it. Um, how do you like to train? Keep it simple and hit body parts once a week. I feel like I've kind of already answered this question. Yeah, I've already answered that question. Um, you guys see how I train. I mean, I mix everything together. Um, and I do some compound exercises, but I think that you should experiment and find out what exercises really work best for you. I am big on like compound movement supersets because they really beat the shit out of you, and I think that's important to keep you in good shape. You should really beat the shit out of yourself. Um, how do you do with water, sodium, in your diet in general if you have to take a flight to a show? Um, do you drink more or less than normal? And the same thing with carbs. This is an interesting question. Um, so, what I've been told um, is, when I have to take a flight for a show, and you don't want to hold water, you will hold some water from taking a flight. It's just kind of it messes up your body. Your body's not used to flying. Um, don't eat carbs before you get on the plane, and drink water, water, water. If you can, move around the plane. That's what Kevin LeBron said. He said he used to walk up and down the aisles. People thought he was nuts because he would do like push-ups. He would just move around so the water wouldn't have a chance to kind of like settle. Just keep the blood moving. Um, um, in terms of the sodium, I think that's going to depend on how you look. Depends on how many days you are from your show and what your plan is with it. But the carbs is the one thing for sure. Uh, do I think Phil Heath will break Ronnie's and these record by winning 9 titles? Or do you think someone will throw him to that ninth Sando? Ooh, I don't know, man. Um, he's got it made. It's a tricky game, man. There's a lot that comes into play. So for me to really comment on that is, as a pro, is difficult. Um, Phil Heath is an amazing bodybuilder. Kai Green is an amazing bodybuilder. I see some other amazing bodybuilders coming up. Um, and this is a show that's judged by others. It's not like a fight where Phil Heath is going to knock somebody out. So, if you catch my drift, this is something that um, no one really has direct power over, and it could really go either way. So, I don't know. I really don't know. who knows how long Phil will decide to do it for. I have a question about dieting. Now I'm in a cutting period and I'm on 3 days low carbs, only cup of oats in the morning, and the fourth day I eat around 50 grams of carbs in 4 meals. But I need to reread that. What do I think about that? I can't really tell you what I think about that, man, because I don't know anything about you. Sorry. For someone to ask me a question like, hey, I'm doing this, what do you think about it? As much as I would like to be able to answer your question, I would like to think that maybe a trainer gave you that protocol uh, specifically catered to you. So I don't know what to say about it personally. I don't know these other factors. What are you taking? What are you doing? How much do you weigh, etc. So I can't really tell you. Um, Cardio post workout I think is good, but I would rather do it fasted in the morning. This past year I would do it fasted in the morning and post workout. What do you think about cutting above your maintenance and just doing a lot of cardio? I don't like that idea personally. I just personally am a believer that you really only have so much of yourself to invest in the gym every day. So if you can avoid being on a step mill, being on a treadmill, plodding away for hours, I guarantee you that you will probably have better, balls out, just going hard training sessions. And that's what's really important. So for me, I'd rather eat less and then just kick ass in my workout. Um, I feel like that's going to result in a few things that are going to be superior to the other option because you're training hard, so you're going to be denser. Now, some people will say, oh, well, I eat more, I'm more full. Yeah, but if you're doing all this cardio, I think you kind of flatten out. You're sweating, and your joints, your knees, your hips, everything. Like I said before, when someone asked if I learned less is more, with that, that's something I believe that less is can be more. So if you can eat less and then just train really, really hard, and then go on, that to me is optimal. You'll build a dense, hard physique. But that's just my opinion. You're gonna there's a lot of factors that are gonna play into that. Um, and that's all the questions I have here, guys. I just want to thank you guys for once again being interested enough to ask me these questions. I apologize to you guys that maybe had a false impression that I could answer a question like that I couldn't. But we'll do this again soon. And until next time, peace.